Lynda, I have to say here out of the gate, I'm looking at Webster's dictionary and I see a typo. I'm looking at the definition for extraordinary. It should say Lynda, but it doesn't. That's okay. I'll take that up with Webster later on down the line. How are you feeling? I'm so glad to have you on the show today, Lynda.
I'm awesome. Thanks so much for having me on. Looking forward to chatting, educating.
Yes, and education we shall. There's a lot of ground to cover. One of the reasons of the, I don't know, 1,000 that I'm excited to talk with you today is that you are the living embodiment of the quintessential archetypal American entrepreneur that started in corporate finance. Excuse me. No, wrong. Very wrong. Corporate training at Prudential, if I'm not mistaken, which we'll get into all the details here, that went fully into the business of you now pursuing scale on some level. So very excited to unpack all that. Maybe as a way to set the rudders for the ship today, we can start here. So when you think back to, let's say, the defining moments, maybe you were at Prudential at the time, right? As a corporate trainer, if I'm not mistaken.
I did start in finance and then I went to corporate training.
Okay.
So you were right. You're right on both sides. You were right.
Perfect. Okay. So I would love to hear the defining moment where you are at Prudential or wherever it is, doing the corporate training life, living the cubicle life, 9 to 5, whatever. The moment where you decided, that's it, I'm out, I'm going into the business of me. Can you tell us that story, please?
Sure. Loved corporate, treated me very well. The moment came after I had children and I realized that my job was getting bigger and bigger. A lot of travel, national travel was in front of me. And I wanted to see my kids grow up. And I just wasn't ready to not be around a lot. So I kind of went with other, expertise areas that I was good in. And I just said, you know what, I think I want to leave corporate, take a breather, and maybe start my own business. And that business actually started as a mommy and me play, very similar to a gymboree, when my children were very young. And it worked well for me. And during that whole time, I always dabbled in the fitness world. So I've always helped people. I've educated children. I've worked with parents, just smiles. And that was, my goal. If someone can smile every day, that's what I wanted them to do. And I continued on. After a handful of years, I sold that. My children were older and I was done with the kid thing. So I moved on to start my fitness business. And I did that in a number of different ways, either managing fitness studios, or I was also doing personal training on the side. So the goal of everything I've done is to be able to manage my own schedule, so I have time for my family life and my social life. And that was really what everything was based around. And it ended up working out great for me. I probably could have stayed in corporate and made a lot more money over the 30 years, but I chose a path where I can control my schedule because it was very difficult with 2 young kids at home. And as they got involved in sports, and just like any typical mother that's running around, I felt it was important to be able to be there when they needed me. So that's really how I got into it. And then it snowballed into stumbling upon CryoSkin after I had gone through some health issues of my own, where it changed my body a little bit in a way that I was not happy with. And I tackled that, and I loved what CryoSkin did for me and how it made me feel. And I knew it wasn't surgery. And fast forward, I ended up leaving the full-time fitness of managing, a 7-day-a-week facility. And I started CryoSkin. After I tried it, I was like, I could do this. I could help people. I was like, later in the years. And I said, there's so many people like me who are just looking to feel a little bit better about themselves. And I did it. And I found a great chiropractor in New Jersey, and I've tapped into him, and he's been awesome. And that's where I am now. And then we opened our second one in Bernardsville, another location about 4 months ago. And we're kind of ramping that up right now. So
Hmm.
that's the story.
When you decided to put in your 2 weeks at Prudential, what did you
Mhm.
feel in that moment? Take us back to
Scared,
that feeling.
scared, because I had a very successful job, very successful. We're hard workers, and I was worried that I wasn't going to find something with that financial capacity and security of health insurance. I mean, my husband also worked at Prudential at the time, and we had his to fall, but life happens, and I always wanted my security. And yeah, I was scared. I was scared, and of course, I wasn't making the money that I was making, but I found my way, and I've always made it work.
Hmm.
I've always made it work. So it was very scary. Giving up a
Yeah.
lot, you feel like, where do I begin? Where do I turn? No one's, who's going to help me? Who wants to work like I want to work, right? And have the ethics and values that I have, who are so passionate about what they do. And I think that's one of the hardest things. And anytime you own a business, that's one of the hardest things, to find those people.
Completely. Yeah. Unless you give them ownership of the
Sure,
enterprise on some level, they're just not going to have the same care because there's no skin in the game, because
sure.
it's expendable, disposable from their perspective. You said that you had some anxiety around finding your way, and I'm assuming there's certainly someone in the audience today that is saying, "That's me. I'm having trouble finding my way." Now, you found your way. You have 2 locations now for Euro Body Contouring, one in Madison and one in Bernardsville, and we'll unpack that momentarily, how you got there. But I'm curious if there's uh, any actionable insights or quotes that or sources of inspiration that you turn to when you were trying to find your way in those dark hours in the beginning, early on, when you were just launching.
Yeah. A lot of my over the years, as I worked at Prudential, I still taught fitness, and I had a very, very big fitness following. And when I had left Prudential and still did that little baby thing, I still had a lot of followers on the fitness side, and I knew a lot of people. And I would talk to a lot of those people and say, do I take the plunge and really just continue to own my own businesses? Um, and I started, everything I've done, I'm going to say, was at a somewhat smaller scale
Mhm.
in terms of starting. I've never had 40 employees. It's always been a smaller scale type business, a small business. So I feel that I was able to manage it. Um, but a big inspiration was, my sisters at the time. They're like, whatever you set your mind to, you could always do it. So they were always very supportive. And there were many nights where I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to manage people anymore. I don't want my own business. And then when I saw the one, I was like, I don't want to work for anyone. Let's do this again, but let's try to shift it a little bit. And I kind of changed my career with the times of my life, if that makes sense.
Mm.
My children were younger, so I owned a baby business. Then they got a little bit older. Then I shifted to more of the fitness side in my age. And now I do cryoskin and endospheres, which I'm not going to say is all my age, but a lot of it is. So I've always moved my career in terms of where I am in my life, because I can relate
Mm.
at those stages where I am in my career and where I am as a person. I can relate to those people because most of our clientele is women, for both cryoskin and endospheres. And I feel like I can just relate. And I've always been very relatable to people. So when I had children, at a very young age, I was able to completely relate to those babies and those moms with babies, because I had babies. So
Yeah.
there was always that connection I've made with people. And I think that's where a big part of my success comes, because I can always get along with people and relate to what they're doing in their life, because I tend to move my career with that, in that
Mm.
path. Does that right? You see what I'm saying? Like I move,
Yeah.
my career moves with me kind of, right? Kind
Right.
of moved with me, with where I was in my career and what works for me and what makes me happy to make other people happy.
Mm.
Like if I can make other people happy, I'm like, I could do this in a business. I just made 10 people happy. I can make 400 people happy now.
Yes, exactly. It reminds me
Right?
of yeah, completely. It reminds me of, I can't recall if it's Naval Ravikant, who's the Buddha of Silicon Valley, in terms of his just wisdom. He's just an absolute Buddha, like wise guy. Well, not a wise guy. He's just smart. Whatever. He's wise. he's wise. Or if it was Dan Coey, a guy that I follow on Twitter, both of them are advocates of this idea of, well, let me say it succinctly, creation. And
Mhm.
so what the heck am I getting at? In terms of creating, either creating a business or finding new ways to create value for other people that you already serve, or if you want to
Mhm.
expand to a new niche or whatever, one of the best ways to do that is solve your own problem. And that's effectively what you've done, is you've solved for X in your life, whatever the X happened to be at Y time in your life. And as you did that, you just translated that to the masses. So you found a solution to, in this case, with your services you offer at your body contouring. You initially were drawn to those because they helped you. And so I think the point of this is that um, it's a very helpful, I think, heuristic for finding ways to give value to the people that you serve or want to serve, is starting by looking inward. Okay, I don't know what to do next in my business. Well, identify a problem that you have, which it could be your accounting, it could be it could be something aesthetically, a double chin issue, or it could be something else, and then solve it, and then find a way to either teach others how to do that same thing, which we're going to get into educational stuff here down the line, particularly with your industry's product. Um, it can either be educating people or solving it for them, which is what you've done effectively. So I find that very interesting. Hmm. So you overcome this anxiety, this fear out of the gate when you put in your 2 weeks, when you say, Prudential, I'm done, that's it, I'm out, never again.
Yeah.
I think, well, I don't think, I would love to hear if now, looking back, you were happy with that decision, with the opportunity cost and that trade that you made.
Good question. If I look back at all of the people I've touched over the years, and I still continue to, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Absolutely. Absolutely 110, 50, 200%. Do I sometimes look back and say it would have been easier
Hmm.
in terms of working 9 to 5 and being able to go home and kind of put the book down and say, you know what, I'm going to pick it up tomorrow morning. Owning a business is 24/7. You're the owner. You know, you're the one in. If there's a problem at night, you're fixing it. So I don't regret anything I've done, but there definitely are days that I look back and I'm like, oh, maybe I should just go find a job working from home, right? So, and then I'd be the person who'd be sitting at home and I'd be like, oh, I don't want to sit at home every day. Like I just know who I am. So it, I find my stints of businesses that I own, they go with I feel like, okay, I've mastered that. I kind of get like, I'm not going to say bored, but I always need something new, right? Either a new machine or a new location, or like I'm always looking for the next thing. Is it a financial dip a little bit when you open a second one? Of course it is, but it's a risk that you take. But I know I could do it, and I think it's going to be great. And so, there's always the trade off. But when I look back and think, oh, do I want to still, another location, more technicians, more, you know, things that come up every day? I think about it, but I love what I do. I get in that room with clients and I'm like, this is why I do what I do. That's my zen. That's my zen. And with my clients is my zen. And that's why I continue to treat clients. I don't want to not treat them. I want to be completely part of their day. So that's the challenge I have, running the business and still wanting to do, the clients.
I suspect that you have found the thing of which we all, if are not pursuing, should be pursuing in life, which is meaning. And you find deeply impactful meaning in the work that you do. And that's the fuel that runs your engine. Is that a fair assessment?
Sure. Of course it
Yeah.
does. Of course. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, because I was thinking that you have certainly had bouts where there's overwhelming, maybe even paralyzing at moments, or seemingly paralyzing moments of anxiety, dread, fear, whatever. And I think because you have this commitment to be still working in the business, while I'm sure you obviously work on it by thinking strategically, opening up location 2, for example, and what have you. But because you are in the treatment room, still changing lives, literally, in some cases, I'm sure, with people losing X amount of inches or erasing years of cellulite off their thighs or what have you, that fuels you. So I think this is a subtle nod to the necessity for listeners to find ways to maybe reinvigorate their tank of meaning in their work, so that they can propagate the value and the like to their audience and their customers, so that they can have rich lives, not just monetarily, but in their spirit and what have you. So thank you for sharing that. One thing I wanted to touch on before we start educating, let's say, is an observation that I made about you whenever we were talking before the show, which was the fact that you have a very pronounced similarity to, just a billionaire is all, named Rich Barton, who is the founder of both, 3 companies that were all billion-dollar companies: Zillow, Expedia, and Glassdoor, all of which became valued at over $3 billion. And the parallel that I saw was this: both you and he have effectively one guiding ethos that you turn to or lean into as your guiding principle for how you operate. So for Rich, it was disintermediating the barriers or the gates to information. So for Zillow, it was effectively making the MLS obsolete. For Expedia, it was effectively making travel agents obsolete. And Glassdoor, it was essentially making, I don't want to say HR obsolete, but the barriers to actually seeing, okay, what is it like to work at this company? You have a similar approach in that you have one big idea, and this is the point that dictates the course of your action, and it's doing things. Now, that this is my interpretation or characterization, so if it's wrong, you can slap me across the eyeballs and we can re-architect it here. But doing things that make people feel good. Reason I bring this up, actually, before I share that, is that a fair assessment, or am I a light year off from with that statement?
Always. I've always, that's what I like to do. That makes me happy. Because I know someone did it for me.
Yeah.
Many people have done it for me. So I love to do it for other people.
Yeah. Well, I think that's powerful, because oftentimes it seems like we want to overcomplicate things. We want to bite off more than we can chew, or make things more difficult than they need to be. When the truth is, you can have one big idea that serves as a spine for all the action and doings and undertakings that you have in the totality of your life. I mean, this worked for Rich, 3 separate billion-dollar companies. It's worked for you. Is there any feedback or suggestions or advice you would give somebody who's maybe struggling to find even a big idea to help them navigate their day-to-day with their own operation, with their own path? Is there anything that comes to mind for you, people that have inspired you, that shaped your own big idea, or any other notes on that?
I think people have sometimes, and including myself, sometimes us as individuals have so many ideas, and we don't know where to begin. I tend to be a little bit of an impulsive person where when I have an idea, I want to go with it. And I feel you have to weigh your ideas and your passions, and you kind of need to pick the one that really stands out for you, that you could overall manage as a person, because sometimes I might have a passion for something, but maybe I'm just not that great at it, right?
Mm.
I'm like, oh, I really want to do this, but you know what? I don't think I could run a business doing that because I'm not that great at it. I don't
Mm.
feel I'd be successful as running a business with that passion. Okay, but there might be another passion that's like, you know what? I could do this. This is another passion I mean, people have more than one passion in life. And I think you need to find the passion that you can find a successful path to, because not every passion, I have a lot of passions, but sometimes I know in my head, I don't think I'd be successful running a business for that
Mm.
particular thing. But let's take this other one where I could do it. I think I could do it, you know? And a lot of times you have to also look at the business, some businesses, like fortunately, we've been lucky with Artemis and cryoskin and endospheres that they've made it very, not going to say easy, but very, you know, reasonable to open up a business with the way that they run their company. They've made it reasonable for partners. They've made it very fair. So I felt, based on that, let's give it a shot. I think I could do this. So I think people have to find their passion where they know they could take it to another level and be successful at it.
Yeah. I think there's one piece of advice that might help people figure out what that is. It certainly helped me, and maybe you have a similar experience, which is there's so much noise in the day. There's so many conflicting articles and podcasts and Gary V videos and Snapchats and Instagrams and whatever on this damn thing that just floods your dopamine systems and blows up your dopaminergic pathways 28 hours a day, that there's no space for ideation or contemplation or thinking about, okay, what am I actually good at? So here's the antidote, I think, that might serve as a clarifying instrument for those that are looking for their own big idea that serves or can serve as their spine or guiding principle, call it what you will. I think it's a long walk. And just nothing but your head, your ears, and that's it. And there's several reasons for that, but one of them that comes to mind is a quote. I think it's one of the philosophers that I studied in school, but something like, I don't trust an idea unless it came to me while on a walk. And so it's a way to unplug and also enter a flow state where you can have some surface area or space cognitively for clarification, clarity. So you might play with that, audience members that are struggling to find your thread, let's say, or the needle that will serve as a thread for your operations and what have you. So on that note, let's do a little bit of a gear change. I want to get into education. So there's two chunks to this that I think are going to be interesting to dive into. So number one, given that you have the background in corporate finance and corporate training, you know how to operate a business. And it turns out it's different than running a machine as a technician. They're not the same skill sets. So we'll get into that. And then I also want to speak to the role of lymphatic drainage in aesthetics and wellness, and how you're utilizing endospheres to augment the outcomes that you're delivering for your big idea, which is helping people feel good. So we'll chunk it into two sections here. And then I have a surprise bonus section that I have not told you about yet. So
Nice.
Buckle in. We're going to throw for, they're good. They're easy questions though. Well, relatively speaking, I think you'll like them.
Awesome.
So that said, let's start with the operation of a business and delineating some of the differences between operation of a business and functioning as a technician, like an esthetician might be thinking as she's, graduate school. So is there any, I guess we can approach this from one of two angles. So on the macro high level, is there any great advice that you have heard for the actual operation of a business, or conversely, any really bad advice that you've heard that people should run from when they hear it, just on the high level? Then we'll drill down into these other sections that we have plotted out.
Ask that first part again. That was a loaded question.
That was a big question.
That was a big question.
So there's two ways to approach this. So number one is there any astoundingly positive, great advice you've heard on the operating of a business that has landed with you well? Or conversely, the opposite. Is there any absolutely terrible advice that is often blathered in wellness that people should run from? So
yes,
two ways to answer this.
Yeah, the one thing that really stands out about how to run the business, which every business is a little different, and when I got into it, one of the biggest thing was I probably wasn't as diligent about making sure all my back office operations and admin systems were like up and running. I was anxious to get started. How's that? So I had someone always say to me, do not open the doors. Do not open the doors unless you know that everything's working properly, from the phone to the transfer. So all that back office operations, because the last thing you want is a new client calling and you fumbling and being unorganized as a business, right? As a new business. So one of the biggest piece of advice I got, which took a little bit longer than we wanted because we were within another office, was the funneling, the calls, the back office, the room setup. Like, it needs to be zen. I mean, it needs to be clean, nice. So you always have to put yourself in the place of the client. So say, which we did a lot of role play with my sister. She would walk in the door. She would say, up, that, doesn't look right, or whatever. So it took a while for us to be ready to say, are we ready? Because you have to be ready, have to be ready to open up your doors. And I know we get excited to treat people. Oh, I could just do treatments and, let's just treat these people and we'll see results. There's stuff I'm still learning. I've learned a lot about how important it is to get a client in and be very clear about a treatment plan and get them set up with a treatment plan. The first week, I think they came in, they did a treatment and they left. And then I was like, what are we doing? We treated them well, but then I was like, why don't we give them a full-blown treatment plan? So you don't realize these things until after, like that. You want to pull them under your wing. You want them to walk in and be like, you're not going to put your arm around them, but you want to pretend you're going to put your arm around them and say, I got you 110%. I'm going to take care of you. And you have to be ready to do that at all different levels. From when they call, do they get the service? Do they get the treatment? Are we courteous? Who's answering the phone? Do they know what they're talking about? So I think that's key, that the people who are answering the phones really know the products and understand to be able to answer a few questions. Doesn't have to be all of them, but you can't sound clueless in the beginning and just be like, oh, we're new, let me get someone. If you can grab them out of the gate, that's great.
Yeah. So the takeaway here is something like you have to go slow, especially out of the gate, to go fast. So it's maybe the analogy is something like you don't enter a 90-degree turn in a Formula One car at 150 miles an hour. You enter it at 30 so that you can go 200 on the exit, because it's faster to go slow into it. Okay. So the back office systems, I mean, that's just everything from
Everything.
Okay. Okay. Everything. Got it. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
And the technicians, of course, need to be ready. And there were some technicians that I didn't start it right away because I didn't feel that I was ready to put them with a brand new person because they weren't quite ready. So they just trained a little bit longer. I mean, don't feel you need to pull everyone in day one because you'd rather do it right and, wait a week or two, train them up a little bit more, then, I mean, I started with, there were 3 of us for probably over a year. There were only 3 of us. That's it. I mean, now we have 7, but there were 3 of us. We were working buka hours, but we mastered it, right? And then you bring people more on when your slate is full and your schedule is full. Then you start saying, okay, we really need to start branching out.
Yeah, yeah. So would you say that's one of the biggest problems that technicians gone entrepreneur face whenever they launch their own enterprise, or what else would you add to that?
I think that sometimes when you're opening a business, you want employees and you're concerned that you're not going to have enough staff, but you really got to look at the type of business. Our type of business is schedules. You do a cryo scan every 2 weeks, right? You do an endospheres every 3 to 4 days. It's not a business where, you're going to open and you're going to have 10 appointments a day, 5 days a week. So you have to kind of look at the type of business it is and how many machines you have, how many rooms you have. So I do think you really need to be smart about that side of it. And technicians need to be ready at all levels. They need to be ready because they're going to get bombarded with questions from the clients. And if they don't know, then their credibility immediately is gone.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of coming in and doing the treatment and walking out the door. You're with these people for, 45 minutes. So it's like a massage, but they're talking. Massages, you don't talk. Endospheres, they talk the whole time. It's like social hour,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you got to know the product. You got to be an expert for sure.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a big chunk of this as well is really committing to ensuring that your entire staff is equally educated on, at the very minimum, high level details, et cetera, on the products, the ways to pitch the products, et cetera. And this is one of the points that you made before the show, is that we need to find ways to make sure that the technicians effectively transcend just being a technician and can function more as a consultant, such that we can upsell packages of 5, 10, in the case of Endospheres, 12, 18, whatever. Or really the more the idea of becoming a member, or getting them to think that this is a lifestyle approach, just like massage, where you come in every 2 weeks or a month or whatever. Because everyone on your staff is effectively either a representation of your company and a salesperson, or they're a representation of your company or a salesperson, your front desk, everyone, especially your front desk. I can't tell you how many times I've called a spa or any company and I talk to the receptionist and they're absolutely useless, and I will hang up on them because there's no value being offered to me. And it was a customer, which, maybe their execution of whatever service is phenomenal, but if the front desk is tragic, then it's usually a no for me, and no different in the spa world, of course. So you get somebody in the doors and you have them in front of you. What are you doing to ensure that there's stickiness with them so that you don't have high churn? Are there any secrets to, let's say, hedging against churn, so customer retention, really, that you arm yourself and your staff with to have that real stickiness where they stick around for?
Yep. So in a business like this, we often compare it to, it's different than like a salon, where our other location also has a salon too. Very different. And you're not going to get people who are constantly going to come back and cut their hair. This is a treatment plan. Sometimes they do it monthly, but it's 12 treatments and then you might not see them. They might come back. It's not something where you're always going to be seeing them for a full year every year. So what we try to do is we talk about their overall general health. We're not dietitians, we're not nutritionists, but we ask them, we get very involved in their lifestyle. How are you doing? Have you been walking? Have you been drinking a lot of water? So now we're vested in them. We're vested in them as a friend, as a person, to make sure that they're doing the right things to make every treatment effective and make them feel better. So we really let them know that even when they're gone, we still check up on them. How are you doing? How do you feel? You know, do you have any questions? So I think a lot of the retention is being vested in what they're doing. And how was your week? Oh, I didn't eat that great. Oh, what happened? That's okay. You know, you have a bad week. It's not the end of the world. Just let's get back on track. Because we want nothing more than for you to see results. So a lot of the retention is investing ourselves in their lifestyle. I mean, we know, you know, we're like therapists. We know their life story, these people. We know when people are going through hard times. We're well aware of it. We're extremely empathetic. And we ask, how you doing? You okay? Anything I could do for you? And I think that, again, it's that personal touch. It's beyond the treatment, right? Now it's beyond the treatment. It's, wow, they really care about me. I like to come here. I want to come here. This is relaxing. This is therapy for me. I love talking to them. They give me good advice. They help me. So, you know, I think that in itself speaks volumes.
Yeah, certainly. It's funny. It almost is the case that the service, well, I'm gonna say something and then immediately argue against myself. But it's something like the service doesn't matter. It's the way they feel when they leave the spa, which, and there's good reason to defend that view, which is that, well, first of all, let me be very clear. Of course, the results you offer have to be high quality, duh, obviously. But the next stage seems to be the way that they feel when they leave. So do I feel heard? Do I feel like they care, et cetera? And what's interesting is I can't recall the study that was done, but it was some study where they wanted to get some data to deduce if this is a psychological phenomenon, that the way people feel at the end of an experience dictates their perception of the whole thing. So they did a study, as my voice cracks like I'm a 14-year-old boy again. That's fun. They did a medical study where they had two groups, and they both were getting colonoscopies, which is objectively not a fun time, turns out. And the experience was identical, except in one case, they did something, I can't remember if it was something that was like funny or something that was just enjoyable or whatever. Like they watched a comedy or something, to where at the end of the variable test, they left with a positive feeling. And then what I believe they did is several months later, they interviewed them and asked them, I think it was to qualitatively or quantitatively rate the experience. Now, mind you, these are the exact same experiences. They're both having colonoscopies done, okay, which is objectively like awful. And the group that had the positive experience at the end rated it as being not as dramatic or awful or whatever, when it's like, it was the same damn thing as the other group. But because the way they felt at the end of the procedure was night and day better, their memory of it was night and day better, implying that the way people feel when they leave your, in this case, spa or interaction with you, will literally dictate the way they view you and the memory of you and the experience with you for months, maybe even years to come. So that's, to me, that's testament to the fact of, you better have your front desk trained to laud the client for coming in. Thank you. Have a great day. You know, acknowledge them, et cetera, on the way out, because that will, I'm with near certainty, will have confident that will have profound impacts on things like your reviews, revenue, et cetera.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Are there any other notes there on distinguishing the operation of a business as a business owner versus having the technician mindset that you would want to touch on before we scoot along?
I think it's important that the technician mindset, and is, you know, not every technician is necessarily a salesperson. And they might be the best technician in the world, and they're interactive, they're supportive and everything. But I think it's really the overall aura that they let out in the room,
Yeah.
because even if they're not the best salespeople, but they take care of their clients and they say, hey, why don't you try an endospheres? They might not know every single price and every little answer, but that's okay. They understand what the client needs. And that is the most important thing, to say, you know what, you're almost done with your treatments. Let's talk about the next steps, and how are you feeling about it? And that's all they might say. And they say, well, let me think about it. And then they'll come to me and say, I'm not sure, wasn't sure what to do, but they wanted to do something else. I said, well, let's talk about it. So we talk about it. And the next time they go in with the client, they have that conversation. So it's slowly training them to get more comfortable, to be able to sell the product comfortably without being afraid to talk about money. A lot of people don't want to talk about money because they're nervous.
Yes. Yes.
They want to do the treatment, but they don't want to tell them it's $2,000 or $1,500. They're like, I'm kind of afraid. I said, you got them hooked. You just told them that they wanted it, and they came back and said they wanted to do it. So never be afraid as a technician. Never,
No.
you really have to let your technicians know it's okay. They're looking for a price. They're coming to you for a service. And then once they start doing it a couple of times, they're like, oh yeah, it isn't too hard.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that, technicians, even though, because they probably get paid a little bit more, it's way more than walking and doing the treatment and walking out the door and making your money and being done. It's that mindset that you don't want to have. Like, how much do I make? How much do I make? How many treatments am I doing this week? How many treatments am I, that's when and everyone wants to make money, but that's when they're kind of just there for the money and they want to leave. And you can tell with their tasks. The room's not clean when they leave. You can just tell where their mindset is. And those are the ones you really want to stay away from, because it's not that type of business.
Yeah. A couple things jump to mind. One is you touched on the fear bit. I'm scared to tell people the price. How about this little quote from 2003, circa my favorite Chinese restaurant in Bend, Oregon? And here it is. Came from a fortune cookie of all places. The quote is, fear is an interest paid on a debt you may not owe. And listeners and viewers on YouTube, let me tell you the secret to selling, okay? It's really complicated. It's this: give a damn about the person you're serving, figure out what they actually need, and then deliver it. And then, oh, by the way, here's the pro tip on sharing the price with a potential buyer. It's really complicated. Here's how it sounds. The price is X. Questions? My book comes out this fall. The idea is all you have to do is just say it with conviction and certainty, unapologetically, like it's no big deal. Yeah, price is X. Okay, cool. I'm in. Let's go. And by the way, there are people selling CryoScan 20 packs for $6,000, and they don't bat an eye, because the way the person sells it, meaning they just share the price, they just, yeah, cool, great. I have a wedding coming up in 4 months. Let's go. I'm in. Anyway, okay. Well, I want to get into endospheres for several reasons. Number one is, to me, and I feel like I've shared this in a podcast previously, but there are two areas of health and wellness to me that are the most fascinating topics on the planet. Number one is the gut microbiome. We won't get into that because that's not my domain of expertise, although there are fantastic interviews from Rich Roll's podcast, which the listeners and audience members should go check out. Rich Roll. The second is lymphatic drainage. Why? America is sedentary. We love sitting on our backsides. We don't move, which creates dyshomeostasis in our lymphatic system, which requires a pumping effect through movement in order to eject and excrete toxins, et cetera, from your body. So tell me why, if you would, or what rather drew you to add something for lymphatic drainage. There was some thinking that led to your saying, okay, whatever, I'm going to pursue this. And then what surprised you about giving services that are for lymphatic drainage in particular?
So this actually came up during COVID when I remember the Endospheres machine was being marketed during COVID. And I only had cryoskin at the time. And I remember saying, oh, wow, that's good. I'd love to try that. And who knew, we were closed. So I was like, I didn't even know if I was going to be in business after COVID. So I was like, I can't buy this machine right now. But I had my eye on it and I did the research and I was like, wow, this can really complement cryoskin. I did a lot of reading on how it complements cryoskin. And in addition, many people use it just for the health benefit. Forget the aesthetics, forget the cellulite side of the house, right? Many people do it for flushing, for circulation, for so many things. Cramping. I know people who have, cramping, arthritis, all that stuff. So finally, about 8 months later, after, maybe 6 months after COVID ends, I'm like, I'm getting that machine. I don't care. I'm getting it. So we bring it on, and I will tell you, it is it's been a game changer. It has been a complete game changer because it's not just aesthetics, and people love the way it makes them feel. Okay, so you have the drainage, you have the bloating side of the house, you have the aches and pains. It helps your immune system by flushing toxins out, bacteria. In addition, it helps reduce the appearance of cellulite. And why? Because it's breaking out of those toxins. And with cryoskin, cryoslimming, they never really had a modality for cellulite. And so many people fight the cellulite issue. It could be hereditary. It could be they have a sedentary lifestyle. A lot of people, remember during COVID, even now, many people are working from home. They're not active during the day like they used to be, running up and down the office, going out to lunch with office mates and all that. It's very, very different. And people's bodies have changed. And I feel Endospheres really has complemented and just has taken the whole aesthetic world to a whole nother level. But in Europe, lymphatic drainage is everything. In the US, it's not as, I ask people, do you know what lymphatic drainage is? Or do you know anything about your lymphatic system? They're like, I have no idea. I have no idea. I said, do you work out? They said, no. I said, well, it's probably stagnant then, because your lymphatic system is only activated if you activate it, right? You have to move, you have to do things. So let's get that going. Let's get rid of that bloatedness from sitting all day, because you're not, you're sitting all day. You're not as active as you used to be. So it's a complete game changer at so many levels with people.
Wow. There's the fact that we're as sedentary as we are and Netflix is as popular as it is indicative that we either need to start handing out gym memberships to everyone, or get people outside walking, moving, lifting weights under a barbell, etc., or find ways to aid the lymphatic system through technology. And there are other options. Of course, you could use massage techniques, which are very tedious and cumbersome. But I think as we technologize everything, technology is the answer. It's the Iron Man suit for technicians in particular that work in the aesthetic space. So you started with cryoskin, and you decided, okay, I want to complement cryoskin with Endospheres. What sort of outcomes are you seeing conjoining the two devices together?
So we see a lot, because cryoskin is a very targeted fat freezing technique. So it's a very targeted area: stomach, legs, arms, chin, whatever you're working. Endospheres is a body treatment. So Endospheres hits your entire body. It also, because it requires a number of treatments, it digs deep down from the skin level down to the muscle level. So it ends up being like a deep tissue massage. So what happens is, when you're killing those fat cells, when they're dead, we need to flush them through your body. And it takes 2 weeks to flush them through. But when you combine endospheres in there, it pushes the cells through your body quicker, therefore giving you quicker results. In addition, you have all those benefits of the endospheres. If it's cellulite, like say someone comes in, they say, oh, I have some fat on my stomach, but I also have cellulite. Perfect. We'll do cryoskin on your stomach. We'll do a full body endospheres for your cellulite. And it also will help tone your muscles, enhance your skin tone. And they're like, sold. It's such an easy sell because people automatically come in and they're like, I need to get rid of my stomach. And sometimes they're bloated. It's not fat. It's bloatedness. And I'm like, you know what? Let's start with endospheres. Let's start with 12 endospheres because you know what? Your stomach's not really fat. It's bloated. You're not flushing properly. Maybe you're not drinking enough water. So there's a whole bunch of little things to look at when someone walks in the door. People automatically think it's fat. Automatically, I have fat to lose. And a lot of times sometimes it's menopause, just bloating, just bloated. You're just your hormones change, your bodies change. So you really have to look at every client differently and very, very individual. And they're like, how many treatments? They'll say on the phone, how many treatments? I don't know, I need to see you. Send me a picture. I don't know how many treatments. I can't tell you how many treatments until we meet. And then we go through the whole machines, the pictures, and they're like, wow. And then the sale's done right then. You got them.
Right,
Hooked, right?
How do you delineate between it being bloating versus fat? Is there some sort of approach that's
so fat is
for you?
Yeah. So some people have maybe a little bit of fat that you can pinchable fat, but some people are a little distended in their stomach. You can tell they're a little bloated, like up higher. And they say, yeah, I'm not regular or whatever they say, whatever they choose to say. I always feel bloated when I eat bread. I feel bloated and I'm gluten-free. And we always check, of course, if they have health issues, because we want to make sure that there's no health issues before they even, get a treatment. So you really just have to look at the person's body. In many cases, people are both. People are both cryoskin and endospheres. I will say probably a good chunk of people. Definitely as they approach like 50, I would say they absolutely can benefit from endospheres with all the hormonal changes that are going on.
So to me, it sounds like they're a no-brainer, cryoskin and endospheres, to pair together.
Definitely, it's a no-brainer. But some people come in and they're very thin, and they might work out a lot, and they're like, you know what? I feel tight all the time. I just feel stagnant. And those are the people who come in and do it for that. It makes them feel great. It's like a deep tissue massage, flushing out all the toxins. They feel less bloated. They feel lighter. So every client is different. But yes,
Very
the
cool.
pairing is key. Very much so.
Yeah. Awesome. Are you able to share the impact Industries has had on the business's revenue?
Yeah. I'm, I can probably say consistently, with your slower months, now we're in our slower months. I think last year, you want numbers?
Yeah, with the numbers.
Okay, sure. So last year, we averaged, and we have a cryoskin and an endospheres machine in that one location. We probably pulled in between 25 and 30,000 every month.
Wow, with both cryoskin and endospheres paired together.
Yes.
Cool.
And my goal was always at least 30,000 a month. That's always my goal. Are we always going to hit it? No, but because you have to pay for the machines and all the other stuff tied to it. So, but a lot of the packages we do sell are either $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, or $6,000 usually. The combined packages.
Yeah.
And people go for it. They do payment plans and they see the value. They definitely see the value.
Wow. So it seems to me like really to get the best outcomes for the majority, this is clients that are skinny, that don't have a lot of fat,
Mhm.
or the corollary or the contrary, having a pairing of the two products is probably the best option, which unsurprisingly, there's different pairing arrangements that make sense for other products too, like maybe conjoining hydrofacial with
Mhm.
an acne treatment, for example, to exfoliate and then to sanitize or sterilize the skin as an example. So there's a sort of Batman and Robin symbiosis with particular devices, and it seems that cryoskin and Endospheres are a pretty potent cocktail of aesthetic power, let's say, for producing change, both wellness and from a fat reduction perspective. So very cool. 25,000 a month. That's incredible. Is there anything about Endospheres that surprised you, where maybe you've had a customer that came in for X and then, oh my gosh, this result happened. It was unreal. That jumps to mind.
Yes, yes. I had a woman come in for cryoskin, mid 50s, works out, eats generally healthy, and we had just gotten endospheres. And the technique of endospheres, we get trained, but we're still learning. I just met with another partner a couple weeks ago, and I'm still learning more about. We're always learning in this field, always, right? Always evolving. And she did 12, so all she could afford. 12 endospheres was the launch price, a static, and her results were crazy amazing. You would have thought that she did like 10 cryoskin treatments on her stomach. Like it was all bloating. It was
Wow.
crazy. Her legs, her stomach, her butt was droopy. Everything was just like lifted. But again, every person reacts differently, but she did all the right things. She continued leading her lifestyle. She drank a lot of water. She religiously came every 4 to 5 days. So she saw some great results. And we always say the machines can only do so much, right? 50% of the treatment is on the client too. We have to meet in the middle and do your part. Like if you're eating like a pig and not drinking water and not doing the right things, you're not going to see as great results as you could. So we say right out of the gate, this is a partnership. We come 50%, you meet us halfway, and we're going to get the best results. The more you put in, the more you're going to get out, because the machines can only do so much, right? You can't force the machines to roll any faster, or the treatment's the treatment. So we follow the protocol, and we do our part, they do their part. They should see some nice results.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I have two more questions for you,
Okay.
and then we'll hang our hats for today. So,
Okay.
if you could design let's say, the largest billboard in America, and it happened to be on the highway nearest you with the best business advice for a wellness or beauty business entrepreneur, and that could be, if it's helpful, maybe a quote from someone that you find inspiring. Maybe it's Grant Cardone or Gary Vee or whatever, Tony Robbins or Viktor Frankl, whomever that might be for you. What would you put on that billboard? What would the message that you want to give the world, would that be?
Without using any products or anything, it would be definitely along the lines of, what would you give to feel good about yourself? Right? What would you give or give up to feel good about yourself? Because you have to give something, right? How do I make myself feel good about myself? What is it? What is that thing?
Love that. Well, Lynda, you have a line from where you are to LA of customers dying to get on your tables for treatments, to see you, etc. So I don't want to hold you hostage all day long. But in closing, where can the audience connect with you if they want to reach out, say hi, come in for a treatment, etc.?
Yep.
What's
So
the best way to connect?
there's a bunch of ways. They could send me an email, info@cryomyskin.com. they could shoot me a text, 973-358-4400, or they can also visit our website at www.cryomyskin.com.
Beautiful.
And follow us on
Awesome.
Instagram, of course, at Eurobody Contouring.
All right. Well, I will put those links in the show notes to make it easy for the audience. And thank you for being on the show today, Lynda.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Bye.
All right. You take care.